evidence is undeniable. Look closely at this receipt. $100 total, yet the station profit is just 3 cents. What does this reveal?
So you're standing out in the freezing cold. Or, maybe the blazing heat, depending on where you live.
Yeah, just gripping that heavy rubber handle at the gas pump.
Exactly. And you're staring at that little digital screen, just watching the dollar signs spin wildly out of control.
And you're just wondering, who is actually pocketing all of my cash right now?
Right. It's such a visceral reaction.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the numbers tick past 50, 60, maybe $80, and the frustration just builds in real time.
Well, today's deep dive is based on a really fascinating breakdown from Car Coach Reports. And we're going to show you why that anger is totally justified.
Completely justified.
But it's aimed at the exact wrong person.
Yes, that's the key.
Our mission today is to untangle the mechanics of gasoline pricing, which, spoiler alert, are deliberately frustrating and complex.
Very deliberate. We're going to bypass the usual scapegoats and debunk the biggest myths about how this market actually works.
Yeah, because getting mad at the local gas station owner is kind of like yelling at a movie theater cashier because Hollywood blockbusters are so expensive to make.
That is a perfect analogy. You're just seeing the final score without understanding any of the
visible global chain. Because the system is literally engineered to keep you asking the wrong questions.
It really is like a magician's misdirection. It hides the real mechanics from the consumer.
I mean, I'm guilty of this. When I pull up to a pump and see prices have spiked like 20 cents overnight, my immediate instinct is to look at that giant glowing corporate logo on the sign.
And you assume what?
I assume the local station owner is just price gouging. Because they know I need gas to get to work. I'm a captive audience.
Sure, most people do. I mean, the franchisee whose name is on the building, they're the easiest, most visible target.
Right.
But the breakdown points out something really fundamental about retail fuel. Local gas station owners do not set the market.
They don't.
No, they are merely trying to survive it. The price you see on that sign is actually dictated by a mechanism called the rack price.
The rack price. Okay, I've heard that term thrown around, like in commodities trading, but how does that actually apply to the guy running the cash register?
So the rack price is essentially the wholesale cost. It is literally the price the station owner is told they have to pay the distributor.
Oh, just if you fill those massive underground tanks.
Exactly, beneath the pavement. And here's the kicker. This wholesale cost is incredibly volatile.
How volatile?
It can change daily. Honestly, sometimes multiple times in a single afternoon.
Wait, really? I always just pictured a gas station getting like a set delivery contract, like a restaurant ordering flour or sugar for the month. If the wholesale cost of fuel is changing by the hour, how's the local owner even supposed to budget for that?
Well, often they just can't.
Wow.
Yeah, they just get a notification that the rack price has shifted, and they just have to absorb that new reality. And the forces shifting that price are completely disconnected from their local town.
We're talking about global stuff here.
Exactly. We are talking about Wall Street traders betting on futures contracts.
So if financial speculators panic over, say, a rumored supply disruption halfway across the world,
they buy up futures, and that drives the wholesale price of fuel up today.
Even though the physical oil hasn't even changed hands yet.
Exactly. But the local station owner is suddenly paying thousands of dollars more just to fill their tank.
Okay, so if the wholesale price jumps 10 cents an hour before the delivery truck arrives, I assume the station owner just walks out, punches a few buttons on the giant sign, and bumps the retail price up 10 cents.
To protect their profit margin.
Yeah.
They usually can't do that. Or, well, they can't do it without risking their entire business.
Why not?
Because the actual profit margins on the physical fuel are shockingly thin. On average, a gas station only makes somewhere between 15 and 35 cents per gallon.
Wait. 15 to 35 cents total.
Yes, and that's their gross margin.
Oh, gross margin, not net.
Right. Meaning, out of that 20-odd cents, they still have to pay the credit card transaction fee, which, by the way, often eats up a third of that margin right off the top.
Just for swiping the card, that's brutal.
It is. Then they have to pay the electricity to run those high-voltage pumps, liability insurance, environmental compliance fees.
And wages for the cashiers.
Exactly. So the actual net profit on a gallon of gas is frequently a fraction of a single penny.
A fraction of a penny. I mean, if the math is that tight, selling fuel sounds like a terrible business model.
It really does.
Why even bother putting pumps in the ground if you're risking thousands of dollars on volatile wholesale prices just to make less than a penny per gallon?
Well, to understand that, you have to pivot your attention away from the gas pump itself.
Okay.
You need to look at the physical building sitting right behind it. Because the fuel is not the product.
It's not.
No. In retail economics, gasoline is what we call a loss leader.
Ah, okay. It's like the cheap printer model.
Yes. Perfect analogy.
You know, you buy a brand new wireless printer for like $40, which feels like a total steal. But the tech company doesn't care about the printer.
Not at all.
They know they're going to make hundreds of dollars off you over the next 3 years because you have to keep buying their specific, ridiculously overpriced ink cartridges.
Exactly. The pump is the cheap printer, and the convenience store is the incredibly lucrative ink.
Wow.
The primary purpose of that massive underground tank of volatile, low-margin gasoline is simply to act as bait.
It just stops your car.
Right. It gets your feet onto the pavement. The real profit center, the engine that actually pays the rent and keeps the business solvent, is inside those glass doors.
Coffee, the hot dogs, the energy drinks.
Oh, yeah. A station makes significantly more net profit selling you a single bottle of water, or like a Snickers bar, than they do selling you a 15-gallon tank of unleaded.
I mean, fountain soda alone.
The margin on fountain soda is astronomically high, but the margin on gas is virtually non-existent. So they'll take a beating on the rack price of fuel if it means you walk inside craving a snack.
Which totally explains a phenomenon that drives drivers completely crazy.
The street fights.
Yes, you'll hit a major intersection and see 4 different gas stations, and they are all locked in this hyper-local pricing war.
Every single day.
Like, one is at $3.50, the one across the street is at $3.48, another is at $3.51. If their margins are already microscopic, why are they shaving off pennies?
Because it's literally a street fight for volume. The ultimate goal is convenience store foot traffic, right? So they're competing fiercely for the lowest visible number on that big sign.
So if the guy across the street drops by 2 cents...
You have to follow suit instantly.
Yeah.
If your sign is 2 cents higher, commuters will just turn left instead of right.
And you don't just lose the gas sale.
Exactly. You lose the chance to sell them a $3 coffee.
Man, this also explains why prices seem to make absolutely no logical sense from block to block. Because if the rack price changes multiple times a day, timing has to be a massive factor here.
Timing is everything. Let's say Station A gets a delivery of 10,000 gallons on Tuesday morning, and the wholesale rack price was relatively low.
Okay, cheap gas.
Right. But Station B, directly across the street, is scheduled for delivery on Wednesday. And overnight, a refinery goes offline and the glutter market spikes.
Oh no, so Station B is paying a way higher rack price for their Wednesday delivery.
Yes. Station A is sitting on yesterday's gas so they can afford to keep their prices low to draw everyone in.
And Station B is just stuck with today's expensive gas.
Exactly. If Station B raises their sign to cover their new cost, their lot will just be a ghost town.
Nobody's pulling in.
Nobody. So Station B is faced with this brutal choice. They either sell that new fuel at an absolute loss just to match Station A and hope people buy enough energy drinks to cover the deficit.
Or they raise the price and accept that nobody's coming inside today.
Right. It creates this constant localized warfare. And it has almost nothing to do with the station owners being greedy. They are literally just trying to clear enough inventory to survive the week.
Okay, so if the local owners are just fighting over the last 2 cents to get us to buy a soda, the bulk of that $3 or $4 a gallon is locked in long before the delivery truck even leaves the depot.
Oh, absolutely.
So what actually builds that heavy baseline cost?
The source material points to 2 massive structural hands shaping that baseline. And the first one is geography and infrastructure.
Geography. I mean, we always hear about a national average gas price.
Yeah, people view it as a national average, but the reality is that the physical landscape and regional pipelines dictate the starting line for your local rack price.
Okay, give me an example. How does the physical landscape change the math?
Take the Gulf Coast. The breakdown highlights that states along the Gulf generally enjoy significantly lower fuel prices.
Because they're close to the oil.
Purely structural. They were sitting right on top of the nation's major refining hubs. They had this massive interconnected web of established pipelines.
So transportation is easy.
Very easy.
Right.
When fuel leaves a refinery in Texas or Louisiana, there's very little friction or transportation cost to get it to a local distribution terminal.
The oil barely has to travel, so the logistics are dirt cheap. But what happens when you look at regions further away, like the Northeast or the West Coast?
Oh, the supply chain becomes vastly more complicated. The Northeast, for example, has limited pipeline capacity connecting it to those southern refineries.
Right.
So when pipelines are full, fuel has to be moved via much more expensive methods. We're talking commercial trucks, freight trains, maritime shipping.
And I assume every time you change the mode of transportation, somebody is taking a cut.
Exactly. You add a heavy logistical fee to the baseline cost of that fuel.
I'd imagine rural areas get hit with a similar logistical penalty, right? Even if they aren't on the coasts.
Oh, rural areas definitely pay a premium for isolation. A major city has multiple terminals, hundreds of trucks running routes constantly.
Lots of options.
But a small town might rely on a single distribution route. If a bridge is closed or, a specialized tanker truck breaks down, that small town experiences an immediate localized supply shortage.
Wow.
So the rack price spikes purely because the physical fuel cannot reach the underground tanks efficiently.
Okay, but geography isn't just about physical distance or pipelines. The breakdown points out that geography also dictates legal boundaries, which brings us to the West Coast, specifically California.
Yeah, California is the perfect case study in how regional policy physically alters the supply chain. State environmental regulations mandate the use of highly specialized fuel blends designed to reduce smog.
So it's not just regular gas?
No, this isn't just a matter of adding a chemical at the very end. Refineries actually have to fundamentally alter their production process to brew this specific formula just for the California market.
Oh, so it's almost like a microbrewery.
That's a great way to put it.
They can't just pump standard unleaded gas from a neighboring state if they run low.
Exactly. That is the crucial bottleneck. By mandating a unique blend, the state inadvertently isolates itself from the broader national supply grid.
So if a refinery in California goes offline for routine maintenance,
they cannot just import cheap surplus gas from Arizona or Nevada to cover the shortage, because that neighboring gas doesn't meet the legal environmental standard.
Man, so that isolation completely removes any supply flexibility.
It does, and that sends the wholesale price skyrocketing whenever there's the slightest hiccup in local production.
Which actually transitions us perfectly to the second much heavier invisible hand, because we've talked about global markets and physical geography, but there is a massive layer of the pump price that is completely divorced from the physical reality of oil.
We're talking about taxes.
Yes, taxes, the part no one likes to talk about.
It's huge, though. Depending on the state you live in, taxes account for roughly 10 to 20% of every single dollar you spend at the pump.
10 to 20%.
Yeah, and understanding the mechanics of how these taxes are applied completely shifts how you view fuel pricing.
Let's break that mechanism down, because it's not just a single federal sales tax, right? It's a layered system.
It is. It starts at the federal level.
Yeah.
The U.S. government levies a flat tax of 18.4 cents on every single gallon of gasoline sold.
Okay, 18.4 cents.
That is the foundational floor. Regardless of where you live or what the global market is doing, the first 18.4 cents goes straight to Washington.
And then the state governments step in and stack their own taxes right on top of that floor.
Yeah, and this is where the regional disparities explode. Some states add 20 cents, others add 40. In states with aggressive infrastructure or environmental fees, those state-level taxes can push the combined tax burden to 50, 60, or even over 70 cents per gallon.
Over 70 cents. See, here is the structural detail that really caught my attention in the prep material. These gas taxes operate entirely differently than a standard sales tax. Well, if I go to a hardware store and buy a hammer, I pay a percentage-based sales tax, right? If the hammer goes on sale and gets cheaper, the actual amount of tax I pay also drops.
Right. But gas taxes do not work that way. They're mostly flat, cent per gallon fees.
So they don't change?
No, they do not fluctuate with the market value of the product. They are a rigid, inflexible floor.
So wait, if the global oil market crashes tomorrow, let's say a massive new supply is discovered and a barrel of crude oil becomes practically worthless, that 18.4 cent federal tax doesn't budge.
Doesn't move an inch.
And the 50 cent state tax doesn't shrink either.
Nope. The taxes are completely immune to supply and demand. Even if the fuel itself were literally free, you would still owe the government 60 or 70 cents per gallon just for the privilege of transferring it into your car.
That is wild.
Yeah, when global prices spike, you are paying the inflated market rate plus this heavy immovable layer of fixed taxes.
Yeah.
And when prices plummet, the tax burden actually becomes a much larger percentage of your overall bill.
Which brings me back to the core premise of this whole deep dive. Because the breakdown claims this system is confusing by design.
It absolutely is.
When you look at how these taxes are collected, it feels intentionally opaque. I mean, if I buy a donut inside the convenience store, the price tag says $2. When I get to the register, the cashier adds an 8% sales tax, and I clearly see the tax applied on my receipt.
But at the pump, the tax is invisible.
Right. It is baked directly into the advertised price. The giant neon sign on the corner doesn't say $2.90 plus 60 cents in taxes. It just says $3.50.
And this is where the psychology of public relations comes into play.
Yeah, why do policymakers structure it this way? Why hide the tax inside the pump price instead of just adding it at the register like literally everything else we buy?
Well, think about it. If consumers saw a 60-cent tax physically added to every single gallon of gas at the point of sale, the political backlash would be unmanageable.
People would riot.
Exactly. Policymakers and logistics executives oversee incredibly complex, fragile supply chains. They levy heavy infrastructure fees. If the public fully grasped how much their money was going to systemic inefficiencies or rigid tax floors, they would demand immediate change from their elected officials.
So by baking it into the final number and forcing the local franchisee to advertise that single bloated number on a giant glowing sign.
The local gas station becomes a PR buffer.
Wow.
The corporate logo acts as a human shield. It completely redirects all of your consumer anxiety.
So it's easier to blame the cashier.
It is infinitely easier for a politician or a global logistics executive to let you blame the guy running the cash register for, price gouging than it is to stand at a podium and explain crude oil futures, pipeline bottlenecks, and inflexible state tax burdens.
The local owner just absorbs all the anger.
Yep, insulating the macro forces from any real public scrutiny.
And the fact that we see these stations engaging in those hyper-local street fights, adjusting their signs by a penny or two every few hours, that only reinforces the illusion.
It really does.
Yeah.
It visually makes it look like the local owners are sitting in a back room pulling the levers of the global economy.
When in reality, they are just desperately trying to lure you in for a hot dog.
It is a brilliantly designed scapegoat mechanism. You are actively participating in a volatile global commodities market, but your frustration is laser-focused on the very last gear in the machine.
I mean, gas prices look like pure chaos from the street, but mapping out the mechanics shows a very rigid chain of cause and effect.
Very rigid.
It starts thousands of miles away, with Wall Street speculation setting a wholesale baseline.
Right, and then the physical infrastructure takes over. Pipelines, regional geography, and specialized environmental blends create localized bottlenecks that drive up logistical costs.
And then the government drops a heavy, immovable concrete floor of flat taxes on top of that baseline, locking in a premium that never goes away, regardless of how cheap crude oil gets.
And finally, that bloated, accumulated cost is handed down to the local gas station owner, who immediately engages in a block-by-block street fight with their neighbors, just shaving off pennies and sacrificing their own margins just to get you to pull onto their lot.
Man. So the next time you're standing out in the cold, gripping that pump, and watching the digital numbers drain your wallet, remind yourself what you're actually paying for.
It's not just the gas.
No. You aren't just buying a few gallons of unleaded, you are financing a sprawling gauntlet of global commodities trading, regional pipeline limitations, and completely inflexible tax policies.
All of it.
And at the very end of that chaotic journey, you are just helping a local small business owner keep their lights on so they can sell you a soda.
It completely reframes the entire transaction. I mean, once you see the hidden layers, you really can't unsee them.
It really does. And, it leaves me with one final lingering thought to explore on your own.
Oh.
If the mechanics of gasoline pricing are deliberately structured to be this opaque, bearing the real costs to shield policymakers and supply chains from public outrage by giving us an easy, visible target to get mad at, what other everyday bills are engineered the exact same way?
Well, that's a great point.
Right. When you open a utility bill or pay an airline fee or look at a hospital invoice, how much of that complex structure is designed specifically to keep you pointing your finger at the completely wrong person?
Definitely something to think about.
Keep that in mind the next time you find yourself yelling at the final link in the chain.